Coming up on Dr. Kiki's Science Hour, we're talking about the future of cars. That's up next on Dr. Kiki's Science Hour.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Dr. Kiki's Science Hour is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Dr. Kiki's Science Hour with me, Dr. Kiki, episode number 98, recorded on Thursday, June 2nd, 2011, Taking the Fast Lane. This episode of Dr. Kiki's Science Hour is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streamed to your PC, Mac, or TV instantly. Plus, get DVDs by mail in about one business day. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Dr. Kiki's Science Hour. It's episode 98. We're getting closer and closer to the big round 100. Should I do something special for the century mark? I don't know. We'll see about that. We shall see. But in the meantime, I have a great show ahead for you. It's a little deviation from our normal show plans. I don't have a guest today, but I do have a special video that I'm going to be playing for you. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to head on over to a Ford media event where they were talking about the future of cars, specifically dealing with safety additions to cars and where cars are going to be in the next decade or so. So that's something that we're going to be talking about later on in the show. But first, I'd like to do a rundown of some headline news. This is something new and different. Headlines this week. Worms were found living deep, deep, deep below the Earth's surface. Some media outlets are calling them devil worms. Some other headlines are subterranean worms from hell. I don't know if I would really call them a worm from hell, but they are living deep below the surface where the temperatures are and the pressure is a lot hotter. And this is the first time that a multicellular creature has been found at such a depth. And the depth is actually greater than a mile below the surface. They've found this organism called Halocephalus Mephistopheles, get the reference there, everyone. They've found this worm, this little tiny worm species in subterranean, scalding hot water in the pores of sediments 3 kilometers or more below the surface. And they do appear to have lived there in isolation for a really, really long time. So this is the deepest living animal to have been found. Bacterial species, of course, have been found living this deep before, but this is the first time it's a multicellular animal. So very interesting, and I'm sure there's going to be news to come about the biology, ecology, and physiology of these animals in the future. Additionally, NASA, our wonderful National Atmospheric and Space Association, has picked the OSIRIS-REx mission to get the go-ahead. The OSIRIS-REx mission is a mission to an asteroid which is called RQ-36. Well, actually, the longer name is 1999. Year was discovered RQ-36. It's about 1,900 feet wide, and it's on a very similar orbit around the sun as the Earth. Its year is about 20% longer than what we experience. So this mission, the OSIRIS-REx mission, is an asteroid sample return mission. So they're going to send a little hardy craft out, circling around the sun, set it up so it's in a trajectory that gets it close to the asteroid. They'll get really, really close, just bump up against it enough to grab a piece of the asteroid and then return home, probably crash landing, hopefully not too disastrously, in some deserted area of some desert here on Earth. And that's going to happen just about 2016 is when they're planning for it to set off and to return to Earth in 2023. So we're looking at a project, a mission that's going to be a good 15 years out. It's a long time for us to be waiting for this. But when it comes back, lots of questions to be asked about asteroids. And this is the darkest asteroid in our near Earth area, which is another interesting aspect of this particular asteroid. Gamma ray bursts have been detected from an old supernova star, and this gamma ray burst they've concluded that it is the oldest, furthest away object ever detected in the universe. So it was a massive star from about 13.14 billion years ago that went supernova, released gamma rays that traveled through time and space to eventually meet us here where we could detect it. Of course, now that star, the remnants of that star are probably much further away than 13.14 billion light years as a result of the expansion of the universe. So anyway, just gives us some more perspective on where we live in this little tiny neighborhood of our universe. News from last week that's been really interesting, people have been writing about it all over the place, have to do with water on the moon. We know that there are ice crystals and bits of water on the moon, but news has come out that there's a lot more water on the moon. Looking at grain by grain analysis of samples brought back from the Apollo mission, researchers think that there may be a lot of water of water on the moon. Maybe as much water trapped in the rocks of the moon as there is here on Earth, which does put into question some ideas about the formation of the moon. How did it get there? Was it really an asteroid or something that smashed into Earth and caused the chunks of rock to leave the Earth in a fiery way and later form into the moon? Because if it happened that way, we wouldn't find that much deep ice water trapped in the moon. It just wouldn't be there. It would have been evaporated with all of the heat. Probably wouldn't end up the way that it did. So, is the moon just a clumped bunch of rocks and stuff from around our planet? I don't know. There's a lot that this opens up in terms of moon questions. Big mystery for the moon, in fact. Another story that I think is pretty interesting this week is a question of early humans. Did early human males stay at home or around the campfire, or the females just were they the ones who actually moved around and went other places? It turns out, due to analysis of teeth, smaller teeth seemed to have isotopes, chemical isotopes of different locations from which they were found, which indicates size of the teeth, indicating the sex of the individual. So larger teeth were assumed to be male, smaller teeth assumed to be female. The chemical isotopes, if they matched the isotopes of the area, that would mean that that individual ate food in only one particular area and thus stayed in one particular place for its lifetime. Isotopes from someplace else would mean that individual had traveled, eating food in different locations along the way. So the question is, they found that big teeth had stable isotopes from one location, smaller teeth had isotopes from different locations. Did the females do a lot more wandering? Well, that's a question that we can't really answer. The paper kind of makes this question. A lot of people have jumped on the stay-at-home dad aspect in the media. Not necessarily the way it works. Females often don't leave locations of their own accord. However, in biology, there are many species, birds one of them, where females are the ones who don't stay at home, who actually move to different places to find new territory and different mates. So the females could have been the ones who left home and wandered to meet different tribes at a certain point in life, or they could have been bashed on the head, caveman style, and dragged off someplace else. Another story, except for a drop due to the recession in 2009, carbon emissions are up globally. That's right. Carbon emissions were reported this Monday by the International Energy Agency. They've evaluated humanity's carbon budget. They did so in 2009, and yay, we dropped. But there was a question: did the recession cause that drop? Were our activities less because there was less money floating around? And it appears that that's the case. So this year, we emitted last year, 2010, we emitted roughly 30.6 gigatons of CO2, which is up 5% over 2008. Industrialized countries account for 40% of these emissions, only 25% of emissions growth. So India and China have much faster output increases. So their rise over run, their rate of increase is a much faster pace, even though per person emissions are fairly low still. Anyway, chief economist of the IEA says these are a serious setback to attempts to limit the warming of the planet to 2 degrees Celsius. So even though we want to limit stuff, we're not limiting stuff. Another story that I thought was really fun this week, maybe we can beat the mosquitoes by confusing them. Nobody likes getting bitten by mosquitoes, right? Well, some researchers are working on a chemical mix, which is a combination of odors that would disrupt a mosquito's ability to respond to carbon dioxide. It's been found over the past several years that mosquitoes home in on people's carbon dioxide emissions. And so it gives mosquitoes a signal to tune into. And if we could disrupt that signal somehow, maybe they wouldn't be able to find us. So it's kind of an odor camouflage in a sense. The researchers screened for chemicals that would affect behavioral response to carbon dioxide in female mosquitoes. Female mosquitoes are the ones that usually transmit malaria. And they looked at 3 disease-transmitting species: Anopheles gambiae, Culex cinquefasciatus, and Anopheles aegypti. And they found that 2,3-butane-dione, which is a byproduct of fermentation that has a buttery flavor, is important in reducing sensitivity for carbon dioxide. So they found a whole bunch of combinations: butane-dione with 1 hexanol, 1 butanol, 1 pentanol. A bunch of these different odorous compounds seem to confuse the mosquitoes. So if we can confuse the mosquitoes, maybe we won't have to use cancer-causing compounds like DEET in the future. Maybe we'll just have buttery, nutty smelling mosquito repellents as time goes on. And the final story that I think is really interesting, it's a way to get you guys out there into the science world. If you are interested, the World Science Festival is underway in New York City. So you can head over to the World Science Festival website and actually watch a lot of what they have going on. If you're not in New York City, you can watch it streamed live from their website. They're putting a lot of the content online. So if you have the opportunity today, tomorrow, over the weekend to check out the World Science Festival, they have amazing scientists from all over the world that they've brought together to talk about science from a cultural, standard academic, and artistic perspective. There are many perspectives to be found and a lot of entertainment along the way. So check it out, yo. And that's it for the news headlines for science for the last week. Time to move forward. I'm going to take this moment to take a little message from our sponsor. This episode of Dr. Kiki's Science Hour is brought to you by Netflix. Netflix delivers movies directly to your home and saves you time, money, and hassle. You can instantly watch thousands of TV episodes, movies, have them streamed directly to your PC or Mac if you use a home media center or your home computer or your laptop. You can have them streamed to your television via a Netflix-ready device like Boxee or Roku or the PS3 or the Xbox 360. If you're not into the instant streaming, you can also get DVDs sent to you via mail. That takes only about 1 business day. And the great thing is you can keep them as long as you want, so you don't have to worry about late fees. All you have to worry about is paying your monthly access fee. Watch as many movies as you want, anytime you want. That's right. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are never any late fees and no due dates. One movie, my pick of the week for this week, is appropriate, I think, for the topic that we're going to be discussing later on in the show. Triple X. That's right, starring Vin Diesel and Samuel L. Jackson. There's a lot of car chase action in this action flick, and today's show, talking about the future of cars, who can't appreciate a fun action movie that involves pretty cars with big engines, right? Lots of vroom, vroom, crash, crash, boom, boom. It's a lot of fun. Great movie if you're into that kind of action entertainment. And you can download that. You can stream it live from the Netflix website. Instantly watch this movie or choose from thousands of other TV episodes or other movies when you register for a free trial membership. How to do that? You go to netflix.com/twit. Be sure to sign up for your free trial at netflix.com/twit. That's netflix.com/TWIT. I'd like to thank Netflix for their support of Dr. Kiki Science Hour and of Twit. All right, everybody, back to the show. Time for our main attraction today. Ford says they are interested in the safety of the average driver and are developing intelligent car systems based on readily available and cheap technology like Wi-Fi and GPS. I got a chance yesterday to check some of this stuff out, and so here's a video of what I got to see yesterday. Hi, I'm Dr. Kiki. What could be more American than baseball? Well, possibly cars. And I'm at a Ford media event at AT&T Park to talk about the future of cars, specifically how safe they're going to be in the future with the use of modern technologies. So come with me. I'm going to go check out a panel and do a few interviews to find out what lies in store.
Where we see the intelligent car, the connected car going in the future.
We have a little bit different environment, highly regulated environment, an environment that really requires some unique requirements to keep people focused on their primary function, which is to drive the vehicle.
So this is a transparency that I think we're looking for. And where we see a reality of what's success in this business and this capability is when the technology disappears into the background.
And if you think about the car as being an ultimate mobile device platform, that brings up all kinds of interesting scenarios.
With growth come practical problems. If we continue with the personal mobility model now in place today, the world's already overburdened transportation system will not be able to support it. Ford recognizes the need for smarter, more sustainable ways to move around big cities, and we are working to be a part of the solution by helping to build a more sustainable future transportation system based on an intelligent vehicle system.
But how will it work? What is Ford working on right now?
Ford's vehicle communication technology allows vehicles to talk wirelessly with one another using advanced Wi-Fi signals or dedicated short-range communications on a secure channel allocated by the Federal Communications Commission. As you'll experience in the demonstrations, 10 times per second, your vehicle will exchange information with all of the other equipped vehicles around it to identify potential hazards and warn the driver if necessary. This technology allows the full range of 360-degree detection of potentially dangerous situations, such as when another driver makes a mistake or when a driver's vision is obstructed. The first scenario we're going to show you is something called EEBL, for emergency electronic brake lights. Imagine you're in a line of cars going down the road, and maybe there's a big truck in front of you, but maybe 3 or 4 cars up ahead of him, there's a vehicle that has to hit the brakes really hard. You wouldn't really know about it until the truck reacted, and you get into these chain reaction kind of crashes. But with this system, that vehicle up in front is going to send out a wireless message 10 times a second, and one of those messages will say, I'm braking really hard right now. We'll receive that message, and even before the car in front of us reacts, we'll get a warning that something's about to happen. Imagine you're driving down the highway, and imagine you're following that blue car, but way up in front of him, there's a black car that's broken down. Maybe he's stopped right in the lane, and you can't really see that black car until the blue car moves out of the way, and suddenly it's a panic situation. But with this technology, the blue car and the black car are both equipped, so you'll be getting messages from that black car that says, hey, I'm stopped, and because the system will say, okay, he's in my path, you'll get a warning even before the blue car swerves out of the way. So we're driving along. Yellow. So even before, like, he reacted, we knew that there was a problem. The intersection crashes are the most common, not the most common crashes, but they're maybe about a third of all fatal crashes. Imagine this is an intersection. Imagine that truck is parked right there, and imagine you're creeping out into that intersection, but you can't see anybody coming, but somebody's coming across from the right. So watch what happens. 3, 2, 1. And it would work not only going forward but going backwards. You know, so if you were reversing and coming out of your driveway and somebody was coming, you'd get that same kind of a warning. But this last one is maybe the most dramatic. It's, imagine you're coming up to that same intersection, but you got a green light and everything looks okay as far as you can tell. You're just cruising along, but somebody is going to come through and violate the red light and meet you at the intersection. But because that truck is there, you can't see him. So, these are really bad crashes at intersections. So imagine what happens now when we pull up to that intersection, but the violator comes through. 3, 2, 1. So we're coming up. Everything looks fine. So that's it. So that's why we get so interested in this technology, because it's the only technology we know of that would really address that kind of a crash. Radars and cameras and lasers wouldn't really help you in that situation, but these wireless messages. And if we can get all vehicles equipped, then we think we can really have a big breakthrough in safety.
So Wi-Fi and GPS would have to have a leg up over radar in situations like that.
I mean, for some of the scenarios, radar wouldn't help you, like the one we just did at the intersection. This technology is not perfect. No technology is perfect. Like, you need to have good GPS satellite visibility. GPS are the satellites up in the sky that your car needs to see. So if you're in a tunnel or you're in a big city where there's tall buildings, you may have limited visibility to the sky. And so it's not, we don't want to claim that it's going to address every possible scenario, but it really works like almost all the time. And NHTSA estimates that 81% of all the vehicle-to-vehicle crashes could be addressed with this technology. So that's a huge thing, and it's really low cost. Radar is a $1,200 option just for the forward-looking radar. Here, our car already has GPS. It already has basic Wi-Fi. So just modifying it a little bit for this is really very inexpensive and can do even more than radar, because radar can only see what it can see. This can kind of see a lot more, 360-degree coverage.
So this would be car-to-car crashes, and like you said, we don't. At this point, it wouldn't be involving pedestrians, bicycle riders. There are still those, I guess, objects that have lower visibility that would not be covered by the Wi-Fi and GPS aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping that people can start incorporating this in smartphones. So your next iPhone maybe would have this kind of capability as well. There's no reason why pedestrians or bicycle riders couldn't have the same capability. maybe, there's fixed objects, there's animals that, you won't be able to address. But we think that this is really low cost, and it's really bringing the same technology we use in other parts of our lives into the automobile. And we think it's the right way to go.
Do you have any data on the reaction times of people who hear the distraction noise and how it actually works to improve their ability to react to things?
Yeah, like I say, this same driver interface is the one we have in production using a radar. That same tone, and we've tested it. We're going to be doing more testing. People, different ages, different genders, to try to understand when to give warnings, and is this the right way to give all warnings, or maybe some should be done a different way. So we're not finished, but we think this is pretty good, and our experience so far with customers in production is that this works really well.
From the consumer and the user side, is this going to be something that is going to, you think, change user behavior?
We look at this system as like a vigilant passenger that's with you. So imagine that most people drive pretty well most of the time, but every once in a while people do things that they shouldn't, and they get themselves in trouble. So imagine that vigilant passenger is with you all the time, that's able to kind of say, hey, look out, you're about to run through a red light or a stop sign, or you're closing in on that car too quickly or something. The nice thing about this technology, it can even see what a real human passenger couldn't see, like we just saw at the intersection. So, but it's not really meant to give you a feeling of, I can just drive any way I want and the system will protect me. It's just meant to say, I'm going to help you when you make a mistake.
And this is just the beginning. Many people, like Thilo Kozlowski from Gartner Inc., are looking even further ahead to predict and develop the automotive landscape for consumers of the future. So, Thilo, will you tell me exactly what your interest is in the future of cars?
Well, we have been looking into the future of vehicles, mobility, and individual mobility in particular for over a decade now. And one of the top topics that we're looking into is the connected car as it relates to that. So the connected car means ultimately that consumers will have a different opinion about vehicles, that government agencies have to think differently about transportation, and that the car industry, maybe even other industries like consumer electronics, all have to figure out a new way to excite consumers with new services, new offerings, new value propositions. That's something that we are researching, that we're trying to predict how the future is changing, and it's something that I find personally also very exciting.
I think it's a really interesting question as well, going from, what technology we have available now and what is the technology of the future going to be? What are the needs or the desires of the consumer going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now? How do you address, the changes in technology and what you think might be where the heart and mind of the consumer is going?
That's a really, tough kind of a thing to do, as you can imagine, right? So we don't have a crystal ball. That's not going to help us. So what we do is we're looking at consumers today, we're looking at technologies today, but also project into how can consumers maybe leverage technologies that don't even exist today in order to satisfy their needs that they have today versus that they will have tomorrow. And needs don't really change that much. It's technologies and it's the way consumers try to address those needs that are changing over time. Think about the car as a perfect example. We have had automobiles for a whole century now. They haven't really changed. We don't have an alternative, and I don't think there will be an alternative to individual transportation that looks different from a car that we have today. However, there will be different functions in a vehicle that can satisfy that need. And who says that going forward you and I have to drive and steer the vehicle can do that for you. So we're really now entering a new phase where cars are becoming much more intelligent, where you as a consumer can focus on other things, because let's face it, we're not the best drivers and a machine can do a much better job. So we're looking into those kind of needs, predict where the technology is going, and also influence that with cultural changes, maybe even government, political considerations that you have to think about, and put this all together in order to predict where the future is going to be. It's an art. It's not easy to do, but we have a really, really good track record of doing that.
One of the things I think is very interesting about technology currently is personalization. Especially the younger generation, very interested in being able to personalize whatever device they own. So the car of the future, is it going to be personalizable? I mean, currently they're very mass produced.
Absolutely, and I think that's going to be one of the challenges for the industry, to figure out a way to get you that personalization effort and at the same time still make money in producing these cars, which means you have to have high volumes. But that's the beauty of software applications and maybe even to a certain extent hardware that you could swap over time. You replace your cell phone maybe every year, every 2 years. Consumers already do this on a large scale. If they could do the same thing with software or applications that they consume while driving in a car, that could be a new way to not only personalize, but to do this over time. So going forward, we may have much more options than getting different rims for your vehicle to personalize your car. You may do this based on what you actually want in terms of a data and information experience in the vehicle.
Currently, cell phones, as your example, cell phones are really dictated by the service provider, whether it's AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile, whatever you're choosing. Do you think that the automotive industry is going to get into partnerships like that with service providers?
Absolutely. I think the automotive industry has to get into these kind of partnerships, because if they don't, they will probably not be able to predict and respond to some of these changes that we just talked about quickly enough. And let's face it, where do consumers go today if they want to get new computing technology or consumer electronic devices? They go to a retail outlet that focuses and specializes in this. The car industry has to leverage these kind of touch points, and some car manufacturers already do that today with regards to providing infotainment technologies and educating consumers on it, or even electric vehicles. So you already see these kind of new partnerships forming, and I personally believe that these kind of partnerships between consumer electronics, retail, and the automotive industry will be key to making all of this successful in the future.
Do you think there's going to end up being a Google of cars?
That's a fascinating question. I think there's a real threat for the automotive industry and maybe a real opportunity for consumers that brand new companies getting introduced into this stuff. And if the car industry doesn't do a good job exciting consumers with these new technologies in the vehicle, others like Google or other companies out there will actually follow that void and provide these kind of experiences. So yeah, there's a real threat to this. And I think the automotive industry has to be very careful not to lose track. So the opportunity in my eyes is to convince consumers that car industry and the car companies can provide that excitement in a car going forward, and not leave it up to the consumer electronic companies to do that.
And what is your ideal car of the future?
My ideal car of the future, personally, is still something that I can drive because I enjoy driving just for fun. But I realize I'm not, the majority of people. The majority of people just look at a vehicle as a means of transportation. So I want to have a car that I can push the button in, that drives itself when I don't feel like driving, in stop-and-go traffic, for example, or maybe when I enjoy that nice wine with somebody else. But for the other times, I want to be able to drive that car whenever I want. And it has to be affordable still. So hopefully we can still have that excitement from driving itself, plus driving on my own going forward. And it's going to be interesting to see how that will shake out.
Do you think the technology is there?
Absolutely. I think it's not so much the technology as a burden anymore. It's much more the cultural changes that need to occur. People actually getting comfortable with that idea. Legislation being able to actually accommodate these new technologies. If cars can drive themselves, maybe an 8-year-old can be driven by a car without any supervision. Or what if you had too many glasses of wine? Is it still okay to have that autonomous vehicle drive you home? Or do you still have to be somewhat cognitive available to actually take over if something happens? So I think the cultural changes may be more of a burden than the technology changes, which is pretty amazing if you think about it.
Those are really thought-provoking ideas. So I'm going to go think about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
I've had a lot of fun today. I hope you have too. And I hope that you've learned a lot about the future of where these cars are going. 2013, we might see some of these cars on the road, Wi-Fi, GPS, souped-up safety vehicles for more and more people. I'm Dr. Kiki, reporting for TWIT. Ford says that they are, so I already said that, it's not a perfect system yet, but it is interesting to see companies focused on what we are going to be driving 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years in the future, or down the road, to use the idiom. What do you all think? Is this technology feasible? Is it something, is it just good to start the conversation? Is it something that is a waste of time? I was watching the chat room as the piece was playing, and Rourke's says, a lack of trust in government will make something like this very difficult to do, because the Wi-Fi data that's being transmitted, like Goldizator, also said, since it's being broadcast, it can be recorded by the government without a need to warrant the recording. Since it's being broadcast, it's public. Set up recording devices around town, and now the man knows when you're speeding because your car is snitching on you. I know cars already have black boxes. I am aware of that. But what would this change about the data that those black boxes would contain? Or at least, what would it change about the accessibility and the use of that data? A lot of what people kept talking about yesterday was this data from all the vehicles using this Wi-Fi and GPS technology being in the cloud. One person that I spoke with, Dr. What was his name? Dr. Praveen Varaya from UC Berkeley. He mentioned the possibility of using the data similarly to change consumer and user behavior, similarly to how electric cars are changing people's behavior by giving that data to them. So how much energy are you using? Should you be braking more so that you can regenerate more energy? Or even the data that we have that people are using for smart energy grid stuff, smart homes. How much energy are you using at a certain time of day? Can you change your behavior to save energy and thus save money? Could this information be used? Could you be sent some kind of weekly analysis of your driving habits? You speed this much of the time, you run these many red lights, you roll through this many stop signs, you have X number of negative interactions with cars. You know, how many people out there would want that information available to them? And if that information is available to them, you know, then is it also available to other people? And how does this infringe on our privacy? So this is even, you know, expanding the conversation to questions of security and privacy and individual rights. But that gets beyond the actual devices and what's being used. So looking at questions of the technology and human behavior, I Am Bagels and Mailman Zero said that the auditory signal would be pretty annoying, that we would be, you know, would you want to be repeatedly interrupted? And would it, you know, I would hope that the system wouldn't alert you every time you come to an intersection, that maybe there is, not maybe, but there is talk of interaction between not just the cars, but also the infrastructure. So actually creating smart roads as well as smart cars. The intersections themselves would communicate with your car to turn off alerts if you don't need them, unless somebody is running a red light and as you're trying to cross on a green. These are all questions that they're trying to work out. John Strickland is saying right now that he thinks the audio alert is less annoying than him screaming. Yeah, so the backseat driver, the person screaming in the back going, "Oh God, brake!" You know, maybe a little beep 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 is less annoying than that in the long run. Let's see, other questions. Dr. Mom had the question that I think a lot of people were talking about as well. What could go wrong? So it's a big question. What could go wrong with this system? What is to stop people from, and she had a couple of questions here. So if this is a system that everybody adopts, what's to stop people from disabling the system? And would the ACLU actually maybe come up with a lawsuit to allow people to disable it? For personal rights reasons, and if we could get complete coverage, that if it could actually give you 360-degree perfect vision around your car, because everybody else has it too, including pedestrians, skateboarders, rollerbladers, bicyclists, motorcycles. If everybody had it, you know, what is to stop those individuals from disabling? But before we even get to that is the question of adoption. You know, how do you get everybody to adopt it? Is this system completely disabled if one person doesn't have it? So if you're driving along and you are reliant on this technology, but there's an old GMC pickup truck that hasn't been retrofitted with the technology. How do you see that car? Because you've gotten used to your car warning you that there's somebody in your blind spot when you turn your right turn signal on to change lanes, because they've got the technology as well. If somebody doesn't have that technology and you don't look over your shoulder or don't use your mirrors appropriately, there's going to be an accident. So in effect, that while this technology is looking to decrease the number of accidents, decrease the number of traffic jams due to accidents, to get the streets running smoothly, could this actually, as it's being adopted, be more dangerous? Will it change people's behaviors? Will people drive differently knowing they have something like this to rely on? So I think that's a question. That's a really good question. So Dr. Mom, going back to her comment, she says, I'm not saying that disabling it would be legal, but how do you know that someone is on the road disabled? People still drive intoxicated when they are not supposed to. Exactly. There are many things. The big questions coming back to this here are, I think, more not necessarily questions of technology and the ability of the technology or the data that we're looking at to do its job, but the way that people will use it. So I think this is going to end up being a very interesting psychological question in the end. And the technology. The problems that the technology will have to solve are the problems like the ones that Dr. Mom has brought up. So if somebody has disabled their system, how do you know? And is there a way that we can have that within the cloud some way? Aaron B is saying it's fine as long as another car not having the tech helps, but it isn't perfection. It's not a force field. It's just another tool to whittle away at the number of accidents. It's not going to make the roads safe, just safer. So, maybe that is the point. Maybe maybe people won't end up relying on it. Maybe, as Aaron B is saying, it's just going to be one additional tool. I do know that, tools that people have, people end up kind of using them and sometimes relying on them. Now, the neat thing about this system that I'm looking at is the fact that Wi-Fi and GPS are very cheap technologies. The current systems that are radar-based are about $2,000 to add on to, probably at minimum, to add on it to any vehicle. So you can add on safety factors, safety technology like radar currently, but adding on the Wi-Fi or GPS, they're trying to make it so cheap that it will be something that's just a part of every vehicle that's produced. And this isn't something that Ford is working on alone. They're actually working with the government. They're working with GM. They're working with lots of other car manufacturers to actually start creating a common language, to common regulations to actually make the playing field something that everybody wants to dabble in, and that it can move forward into maybe policy that every new car is required to have it, just like seatbelts. Chetpot asks, do I think that sonar might be a possibility down the line? Yeah, why not? Why not sonar? Radar is basically is pretty good for that, though, but there's no reason that sonar couldn't be added to your car as well. Maybe that's something for a DIY show for someone to look at. Web3646 says insurance premium is a cost factor. So maybe that's another question. That's something that somebody brought up. Somebody in the panel, Randy, what was his name? Randy Iwasaki, Contra Costa Transportation Authority Executive Director. He said that there's going to be there are going to be things that will instigate people to make changes. So as fuel becomes more expensive, people change the way they drive to not have to pay as much money in the long run. They change their driving habits. so that they end up evening it out. If there are reasons for people to use this technology and to change their driving behavior, people probably will. So it's a very interesting aspect. Goldizator is saying adding 240-mile range to a Tesla Model S will cost $20,000. That makes the radar system seem cheap, right? So, radar, pretty good option. But maybe radar on a Tesla could be a little better. Even if you're already spending $20,000 extra dollars for the 240-mile range, why not just pop for some radar as well? Other comments from people in the chat room. Web7611 mentioned, is this going to allow us to text and drive? So that comes into the question of changing people's behaviors. Are people going to become more reliant, as Dr. Mom said, on the technology? Are they going to become less likely to pay attention to their driving? While what they're trying to do at Ford and with this technology is actually get people to pay more attention. So another aspect of what I saw yesterday that we didn't include in the segment that we produced was the Ford Sync system with their MFT technology, which allows up to 10,000 vocal commands within the car, and it is bringing the Sync software in line with apps that are being produced by people. So iPad, iPhone apps that can work with your car, or that you can even download to your apps that you can even download specifically to your car to help with your driving. So the voice, people talking about texting and driving, maybe 10,000 words is a lot of words. Maybe what we're going to be seeing in the future, and I think that technology has already gotten started, is a car that will text for you. Or that maybe your car has a Twitter account. Maybe additionally, you can use voice to tweet if that's something that you want to do. Maybe you could use voice to text. So if you are a teenage driver, this is something that a lot of young drivers are looking at. Ford representatives said that the data they collected from older drivers versus younger drivers wanted more social connectivity and network things like Twitter and Facebook in their cars, and voice commands abilities, whereas older drivers wanted, were thinking about more regulatory aspects, so higher driving ages, different regulations for drivers on the road, different premiums for tickets and for things that you might do. Yeah, Goldizator, I like your comment here in the chat room. A car that has a Twitter account. Quote, I'm going 20 kilometers per hour over the limit on Eagle Street heading west. Come and get me, coppers. Maybe that's not necessarily the thing that you want your car to tweet, but maybe your car could do that. Maybe it could be. Bubbleboy Chet says a car tweeting would be interesting. I'm so bored sitting here in this parking ramp. Hashtag bored. I think that could actually work. Richard Ya says cars that from Ford already can read tweets and texts, so that if you have your phone plugged in, your car can read tweets and texts to you. I think the big technology would be voice recognition, allowing you to tweet and text back without ever without your hands ever having to leave the steering wheel. And I think that's something that the car manufacturers at this point are really interested in doing. They know that everybody knows that texting while driving is illegal. Using your cell phone while driving, not allowed. But people are doing it anyway. People are doing it irregardless of the amount of money they're going to have to pay for a ticket. So how can we allow people to do this safely? And that's the next step, is working with human behavior. So people who are going to get in the car and try and drive drunk, people who are going to use their cell phones while they're driving, people who just don't pay attention very well. How can we work with human behavior to create cars that actually are smarter than you are? That idiot-proof driving to make it a much safer experience. And that's where they are going at this moment. Dr. Mom asks the question, under what circumstances would a tweet be so urgent that you couldn't wait to answer it until you could safely pull over? And yeah, I don't know exactly what circumstances that would be, and I don't think there are circumstances like that. However, there are people who are stuck in rush hour traffic jams. You want to tweet, oh, the cop saw me tweeting. Great, getting a ticket. Or texting. I think that's where the line is blurred. Maybe not so much tweeting while you're driving rather rapidly, but maybe while you're more stopped in traffic. Dale Poco says it would be awesome if Sync used accents based on the on the tweeter while reading the tweets. So if there were accents based on who actually wrote the tweet, that could be interesting. Yesterday, I asked on Twitter, what are you looking forward to in the future of cars? And I got 43 responses, of which 7 said some aspect of safety was important. 15 said self-driving or automated was important to them. 2 said they absolutely did not want self-driving cars. 9 wanted zero emissions or no gas used, so get off oil dependency. 1 person wanted silence. 4 wanted flying or diving cars. 1 person wanted kit, straight up from Knight Rider people. 1 wanted the car from Back to the Future Part 2. 1 wanted a burrito dispenser in their car, and 2 want no cars at all. So I just think the responses here are really interesting because car manufacturers that were commenting yesterday, they said that most people probably want to keep driving and aren't looking forward to self-driving cars. I find it interesting that a majority, not significant, I'm sure, but a lot of respondents thought that self-driving, in this completely non-scientific poll that I took, that a lot of respondents said self-driving or automated cars would be really important. So maybe what we want to do is find a way to have cars that you can push a button and they drive you to work if you have a long commute, or if you have a trip that you want to take and you don't want to be the person driving, press the button for automation, or you can press the button for I want to drive this myself. And if you do that, maybe we have intelligent roadways that know which people are driving themselves and initiate more safety technologies for those instances that the warning signals automatically come up to let you know when there's going to be trouble, traffic jams, etc., ahead of you. Exactly, Orange Crush, like you said in the chat room, press the button for intoxicated. And that was something that Tilo Kozlowski said earlier in the segment was, is there a button that you press when you're intoxicated and you want to drive home? Or is there no safe level of intoxication in vehicles, even those that do drive themselves? Do we always want to have some legal limit to intoxication if you are getting into a vehicle behind the wheel, even if you're not controlling the wheel? These are all questions that society needs to start asking and thinking about, because these cars are definitely on the way. The future of cars is being discussed, is being researched currently. Mike Schulman from the segment, he's been working on these Wi-Fi and GPS vehicles for a decade. 10 years ago, they started thinking about this and going, okay, what can we do? The last couple of years, they've really started putting them into practice. And in 2013, we're going to be really seeing the first tests of these safer vehicles out on the road. There are going to be several thousand vehicles, buses, cars, trucks out on the road with these driver alert warning systems. McMahon is asking, are these cars going to be like the cars from Demolition Man? Yeah, maybe they will be. Maybe it's not so much that it's a button that you press and say, I'm intoxicated, don't let me drive. Maybe it's more you get into the car and the car has alcohol detection systems to know when you are intoxicated and won't let you start the car. So maybe the cars, again, like I mentioned earlier, idiot-proof cars that are smarter than you that don't let you drive in certain situations. Dr. Mom again in the chat room saying, I'm assuming that the driver will still have override control. And if that happens, that means zero tolerance to impaired drivers. And so I think that's one perspective of this conversation. I tend to agree, because if the intoxicated drivers, officer, I think I was fine. They pressed that override button to drive themselves. Accidents will happen. And if the goal is to reduce fatalities, reduce accidents, increase safety, that's something that couldn't happen. Excuse me. I said I would mute that if I had to cough, and I didn't, and I apologize. I did turn my head, though. Is this also something that is, will mass transit be something that will be increased to make driving less? There were 2 people who want no cars at all. So is that a possible future? While the number of cars is rapidly increasing, is a no car future a possibility? Is mass transit and other vehicle options, are those on the horizon to give us a future without cars? I personally don't think that's a possibility. But McMahon, I do like your option, which is transporters. But I'm going to wait until after the beta test of the transporters. I don't want to end up inside out on somebody's transporter deck. We're getting towards the end of the hour here. If anybody else has their ideas for what my Twitter question, what are you looking forward to in the future of cars? I'd love you to tweet your answers to me. Let me know. Add your own ideas. Just use the hashtag #FutureCar. So #FutureCar, and I'll keep a tally if I can of what people are saying, what they want their future car to be like. What do you want? Do you want the self-driving car? Do you want to drive a car yourself, but do you want increased safety? Do you want flying cars? What's your ideal car of the future? Let me know. #FutureCar on Twitter. Let me know. Aaron B says, America was built in a spread out way. He doesn't see how mass transit can take the place of much beyond commuting to work. Yeah, it would take a lot of hard work to get past cars as we use them today. I'd love to thank everybody for their interaction today. It was really fun to talk with you about safety, about these ideas, this new technology it's a well-spread common technology, Wi-Fi and GPS, that's being put to use by Ford to increase safety of vehicles. Loved finding out your opinions on that, and I like finding out your opinions on the car of the future and where things are going. I like this interaction thing. I feel like I'm really talking to you. It's kind of fun. So thank you very much today. I think that about does it for Dr. Kiki Science Hour. I'm Dr. Kiki, and this has been Dr. Kiki Science Hour. Next week, we're going to be talking about something else real sciencey. I need to get on the phone to a few... Phone? What's a phone? No, I need to get on the computer. Email, Facebook message some individuals about doing some interviews and getting back to the interview format of Dr. Kiki Science Hour. If you liked this format for Dr. Kiki Science Hour, let me know. It might be something that we will do again in the future. We just have to let Twit know, whether or not you like it. Do you appreciate it? Do you want me to go back to interviews? Do you like a little bit of both? I would like to know what you think. Again, more interaction. I think interaction is good. But until next week, you can follow my sciencey pursuits on Twitter, Facebook, etc. I'm Dr. Kiki. Just look for Dr. Kiki. You can Google me. I'm pretty much Googleable as Dr. Kiki. You can subscribe to Dr. Kiki's Science Hour in iTunes. You can also find past episodes at twit.tv/Kiki. Also, if you need more sciencey goodness, be sure to check out This Week in Science, which can be found at twist.org. You can also watch it live at 7:30 p.m. on Thursdays, Pacific time, here on the Twit Network. So just a few hours from now, if you like the live streaming thing, check out This Week in Science. We'll be back for more science. I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to my Science Hour. Remember, all I ask is 1 hour a week to make your world a lot more interesting. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.